There is a city. Plato said it really existed. NASA said they might have found it, but everyone who has seen the evidence with their own eyes has chosen to remain silent. Its name is Atlantis, a super empire older than Egyptian civilization. One day, along with the entire city, hundreds of thousands of residents, and all buildings, it vanished from the earth entirely within 24 hours. It was not war. It was not plague. The entire continent sank to the bottom of the sea. But the most chilling thing is not that it disappeared. It is that it left a map before it vanished. In 2017, scientists scanned the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean with satellites and discovered a giant structure, so regular that it does not look like a natural landform. Straight streets, symmetrical squares, radial canals. They are almost exactly the same as the city described by Plato 2,400 years ago. So here comes the question. Is Atlantis a myth or history? Where exactly is it? And what kind of power could wipe an entire civilization off the earth overnight? The story starts in 360 BC. The ancient Greek philosopher Plato recorded a shocking story in detail. In his dialogues, Timaeus and Critias, he said the city existed around 9,600 BC, 7,000 years earlier than the Egyptian pyramids, 6,000 years earlier than the Sumerian civilization. Pay attention to this timeline. At that time, humans had just learned to farm and were still using stone tools. But Atlantis, as described by Plato, already had a complete urban plan, a complex irrigation system, and even a naval fleet. What is more absurd is the layout of the city. Plato said Atlantis was a perfect concentric circle structure. From the center outward, 2 layers of land and 3 layers of water, ring upon ring, like a huge target. The very center housed temples and royal palaces. The outer areas were residential districts and ports. The whole city was over 20 kilometers in diameter. Such a design was unheard of in the ancient world. Even the Roman Empire at its peak never built such a complex city. But this is not the most bizarre part. Plato said the city disappeared in a single day and night. It did not decline slowly. It was not captured by enemies. The entire island, along with all its people, sank to the bottom of the sea within 24 hours. The words he used were violent earthquakes and floods. And then there was nothing left. A super empire that ruled the Mediterranean was erased from the earth just like that. For more than 2,000 years, people thought it was just a fable made up by Plato to satirize the politics of Athens at that time. But in the 20th century, things started to go wrong. In 1965, NASA's Gemini 4 spacecraft, while photographing the Earth from space, discovered a huge circular structure deep in the Sahara Desert in Africa. It is 23.5 kilometers in diameter and a perfect concentric circle. From space, it looks like a giant eye staring at you. Scientists named it the Rick-Hat structure, but people prefer to call it the Eye of the Sahara. The key point is, when researchers compared this structure with Plato's description, they found a hair-raising fact. They are almost identical. The Rick-Hat structure is 23.5 kilometers in diameter. Atlantis, as described by Plato, is also 23.5 kilometers when converted. The Rick-Hat structure is a concentric circle. Atlantis is also a concentric circle. The Rick-Hat structure has 2 layers of land and 3 layers of depressions. Atlantis is also described as having 2 layers of land and 3 layers of water. How low is the probability of such a coincidence? It is astronomical. But here comes the problem. The Sahara Desert is now one of the driest places on Earth. How could there have been an ocean? At this moment, geologists stepped forward. They found a large number of marine, biological fossils and shell remains around the Rick-Hat structure, as well as traces of seawater erosion. More importantly, in the Oued Jarrett Valley in central Sahara, archaeologists discovered more than 5,000 prehistoric murals depicting giraffes, elephants, hippopotamuses, and people fishing by the water. What does this mean? It means that in ancient times, the Sahara was once an oasis and might even have had an ocean. Scientists speculate that about 10,000 years ago, the Sahara region did experience a drastic geological change. The collision between the African plate and the Eurasian plate caused a sharp drop in the sea level of the Mediterranean. The waterway that originally connected the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean was cut off. The Sahara region changed from a humid marine climate to an arid desert. If Atlantis really existed here, then its disappearance was not sinking into the sea, but being swallowed by the desert. But there is another, even more astonishing possibility. In 2011, archaeologists scanned a marshland in Dinana National Park in southern Spain. With ground-penetrating radar, they found the remains of rectangular buildings buried underground, the street network, and even a port-like structure. This place is only a few dozen kilometers from the Strait of Gibraltar, exactly matching the location, outside the Pillars of Hercules mentioned by Plato. More importantly, geological evidence shows that this area did suffer a devastating tsunami. Around 1600 BC, the entire coastal area was flooded by seawater. So, what exactly caused the destruction of Atlantis? Scientists have proposed 3 possibilities. The first is a supervolcanic eruption. Around 1600 BC, the Santorini volcano in the Aegean Sea erupted in one of the most violent eruptions in human history. Its power was hundreds of times that of the Hiroshima atomic bomb. The tsunami it triggered was as high as 100 meters, directly destroying the Minoan civilization on Crete. The second is a meteorite impact. Some studies found that around 10,000 BC, the Earth might have been hit by a small meteor shower, causing drastic global climate changes and the disappearance of many ancient civilizations. The third is rapid crustal movement. Super earthquakes and tsunamis caused by plate tectonics changed the entire landscape of the region within hours. But the most disturbing thing is why Plato recorded this story. He said it was told to his great-grandfather by Egyptian priests, and the Egyptian priests said their records came from even older documents. If this is true, it means long before humans had written records, there might really have been a highly developed civilization on Earth, of which we know nothing. Today, Atlantis remains a mystery. It might be the Eye of the Sahara, it might be the coast of Spain, it might be an island in the Aegean Sea, or it might just be a prophecy by Plato. But one thing is certain, the history of human civilization is far more complex than we think. Those relics buried in the desert, those cities sunk under the sea, those empires that exist only in legends, they remind us that civilization is fragile. No matter how powerful an empire is, it may vanish into thin air overnight. When you stand by the sea looking at the waves, the land under your feet might once have been the sky of another civilization, and the city you live in may become the next Atlantis. In thousands of years, sought by later generations among the ruins, such is the power of time. It can create civilizations and erase all traces, leaving no evidence behind.